Now? Oh, yeah, we're good. We're on. Let's do it.
What does that mean?
We're rolling.
Oh, that's like the clapper board.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay. Hey, guys.
Hi, Natalie.
Hi, Natalie.
Would you like to introduce yourselves?
I think our reputation speaks for itself. This is Mike from the band Fucked Up.
And yourself? That's Jonah.
From the band Fucked Up.
Yeah, thank you.
And I'm Natalie. I used to work at Mador. During 2008. Well, for many years, but including 2008, which is when...
Hadn't you have just kind of started working there?
I had.
Yeah.
I'm not actually sure exactly when it... I probably should know that, but I also probably should have looked up.
Where did we meet you? I think I remember maybe Camden Barfly gig.
This is what I was also going to ask. Can you... Because I have no idea when we first met, but the record came out 2008. And had you been over before then to the UK?
Yeah, probably like 100 times already.
Yeah, but...
We used to come like 6 times a year.
Yeah. But do you think that's where we met, Camden Barfly?
I think that's the first time I remember being introduced to you.
Right.
It was but it wasn't. It was a pre-chemistry show. We were. I don't know. It was. We played at Barfly. We had our picture taken by Gavin Watson. Does that track as a timeline thing? It was like February 2000.
I think that was already 8.
Oh, right.
Did you go to Tales of the Jackalope Festival?
Yeah.
Maybe
that was
there.
before 8, right?
The summer of 2008? Or...
I think we did it in 6 or 7, and that was the year we flew over and played one song, and then they shut the festival down.
Yeah.
And we didn't have any other shows in England, so we flew over to play
one song and then flew
literally
home.
one song and then flew home, because of the fall.
Right.
And who's the headliner that festival? They couldn't play. They canceled the whole thing.
Wait, so what ended up happening at the festival?
The festival had planning permission for noise levels, but our set was so loud, a farmer one extra field away complained to the council, and they shut it down.
Yeah, and then that was that.
I heard it was because also we were like an hour and a half late going on stage because Mark E. Smith did like a 2-hour sound check or something, like on stage.
I mean, he probably fucked
R.I.P.
with the decibel levels because he was changing the levels of the amps of the other members of the Fall as the set was happening.
Very on brand.
And hitting them and stuff.
Yeah. Wait, so you flew over, played one song, then flew back.
Yeah.
Great.
And they put us on like a very budget airline, and that was in my era of being the most afraid of flying in my life. Oops. And we had to fly from like a different city. And I'm still stressed out about it. And the airline doesn't exist anymore.
Nope.
We fly globe span.
We stopped over in Belfast, and I think we had visas at that point, and there's a necessary thing to like report your entrance into the UK for administrative purposes. But because we landed in Belfast and they didn't process our paperwork at all, and then you don't have to. There's no border between the north of Ireland.
You do customs in Ireland.
Yeah, so we didn't get our thing stamped, and our booking agent sort of flipped out. But what can you do?
But you made it back.
Still here to tell the tale.
Matador, revisionist history. Yeah. Matador.
So let's rewind slightly. How did the Matador deal come about pre-ChemCom release?
There was some interest moving around.
I remember we played that really small Polish place, Europa, in New York, and it was like pure hardcore era. And Patrick and Chris were there, like both just wearing suits and like mocks and stuff, or Max.
Mocks.
Yeah, those long coats.
Mac the Week.
Max.
Yeah.
I thought you were meaning moccasins.
Mock the Knife.
Right.
And just being looking like detectives at the hardcore show.
Really standing out.
Yeah, they chatted us up. And then I think it took like 2 years to figure it all out with the aforementioned Paul Summerstein, our entertainment lawyer. And I remember we were working on the record at the same time as working on the contract, which they both took many, many years. And then we finished them both probably on the same day, and 6 months later, the record came out.
So you probably first met them just after Hidden World had come out.
Probably probably.
Yeah.
I think I first met them after we signed, I think. And we went down for one day to New York. And it was the most glamorous thing that had ever happened to me at that point.
Mm-hmm.
There was Mike and Josh said, "Do you want to go for a meeting?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, sure." Oh no, that's not true. We first met them in the most unglamorous day ever.
Mm-hmm.
Patrick and Lombardi and possibly Gerard too flew to Toronto, and we took them to this pokey little dumper restaurant in the West End of Toronto, and they were so unimpressed. The Butler's Pantry.
Was that when we
had,
played
like,
a Christmas?
microwaved shepherd's pie.
We played a Christmas benefit show, right? And
Yeah.
then they came to, and then it snowed so hard they missed all their flights.
Oh wow.
But I don't think we hung out with them like on their extra days. They just did their own thing.
But then in inverse, like the next meeting we had with them, I think they flew us to New York, and we had some insane sushi meal, and it was like far beyond the station of fucked up at that point. Anyway. Yeah.
And what did you make of them?
I think everybody's friendly.
Yeah.
Straight away. So to this day, I have no concept of their personalities whatsoever. There's two nice guys I met 20 years ago.
Well, there goes all your questions.
That's right.
No,
They seem like three, like, you know, when people sometimes describe people's dynamics as like ego, super ego, and id. Mm-hmm. Probably when you're with the three of them, they're all that.
Yeah.
But it was so.
Who's who?
Well, that's the thing. It was so long ago that I haven't seen any of those people. Like, I don't think I've seen Gerard in like 10 years. But Gerard's the chillest one, right?
You tell me.
I remember I stayed at his house once, which
Yeah.
somebody told me was a rare thing. I like.
That is a very rare
So
thing.
again, being afraid of flying, we played South by Southwest once, and I was in Chicago and instead of taking like a 45-minute flight down to Austin, I was like, no, I think I'm gonna take the train, which took 2 days, and the schedule of it meant that I like got there a couple days early, and so I stayed at Gerard's house, and I remember I got there and the festival had sort of already started, and he was like, he let me in, and he's like, I'm going to a show, so enjoy yourself. And then like this massive dog came stepping out of like the dog room, and I was also very afraid of dogs, and it was like a big dog, and those are they can tell if you are afraid of them, and they
can smell
they
your
really
fear.
lap it up. So I remember just like the whole time Gerard was gone, I'm just like, because I would pet the dog, and if I would stop, it would growl. So I just sat on the couch petting Gerard's dog for probably 4 hours without stopping, and then he came home, and then I never went back there.
No, you did go back because we crashed at his place one time. We were
the dog still
driving.
there?
The dog was still there, and we did some sort of like overnight drive from, not overnight, a few hours, but across Texas anyway. And we
Sure.
had nowhere to stay. And Damien had the bright idea to we'll just call Gerard, stay with him. So it's like 1 a.m. Hey Gerard, we're 2 hours away.
Right.
Can you let us in? Can we crash at your place? And he begrudgingly let us in. But it was very comfortable,
How was the record collection?
And I love.
floor to ceiling.
Yeah.
I think that especially Damien and I were like kind of impressed in those days. I mean, maybe we still are. Damien definitely is, but it was just like, Gerard had been around for all this 80s hardcore, which at that point, I mean, and so had Chris and so had Patrick. So I, that was part of my first impression anyway. It was like, oh yeah, Lombardi played in like a lineup of Gigi Allen's band, and Patrick put out the Death Wish record, and Gerard did what was it, Forced Exposure, and so all of these tenuous things. At that point, I mean, I had far more tunnel vision than Mike, who has always a longer plan in mind. But like, I was still hardcore, and discovering these new capabilities to make something that was maybe a bit more widely interesting. But these people were like grounding me in a sense, and it was okay to dip our toes in this part of the world because all of a sudden there's this deep connection to the little shadowy corner of music that I've decided to obsess over. So I mean that colored my first impression.
So Chemistry hadn't been written before you signed the deal. You said it was happening like concurrently.
I think like that was back in the days when I would write a guitar part like in my room
Yeah.
and record it onto a tape, a cassette or something, and then we would practice for like a year or two. So it was written, but it took like a year to record and write in the studio, and also we would record for a couple weeks, and then go on tour. I think we had like 2 or 3 long sessions, and then just like 6 or 8 months of dicking around, kind of just adding the stupid instruments like flutes or violins or whatever.
I feel like chemistry to me was way more compact than that. I mean, there was definitely some noodling, and I would bring my 8-track to your house, and we'd play into that. It was at your West End place by Kiel, and you had an Akai head rush pedal, which was responsible for some early loops, especially those instrumental tracks. But in my mind, that the chemistry session was just like 14, 15 straight days of stuff that maybe felt like it was too. I mean, there was stuff afterwards, but like the flute intro to Son the Father, I'm pretty sure that got added in situ during the main session. There was a big problem with some intonation on a guitar again in this session. It was all very like 1-to-1 between how we were making the music in the practice space and how we were recording it. And these problems that usually get eliminated in the studio in terms of good equipment, good tuners, reliable, replicable results, totally out the window as usual with us. Like, and that stuff is kind of easier for us now because we write strictly in the studio. But at that point, it was like trying to replicate this moment of creativity as a group under pressure, red light fever, that kind of thing.
So was it a different process to recording?
It was really linear. It was really linear.
Okay.
It was like, get the drums, overdub the guitars, maybe get the 2 guitars at the same time, do some dumb experimentation, bring the organ. The person who played Hammond organ, he wheeled his own huge Leslie speaker into the studio, which was as cold as this room is. And, hours and hours in this big, dark, high-ceiling, vaulted room while everybody else watched movies on a tiny 20-inch tube TV. So it was good.
And it was a new studio for you?
We'd done Hidden World there.
You had?
Yeah. But that was the best of our reach at that time.
But do you think it changed the record? And did you sort of know that you were going to sign to Matador, and did that change what the record was going to be?
No. Cool. Okay, so it was like a year of deciding between Matador and Vice, and we had sort of made friends with people on, both labels. So it became very tricky after a year of just like we basically just had to like flip a coin. But
I found an article. It's the only thing I printed out.
Of?
This was printed in Vice.
Oh, like fuck them.
It was Andy interviewing you.
Oh yeah.
So Andy Capper from Vice. Hey Mike, remember the night you told me you were going to sign to Matador instead of Vice? What are your recollections of that evening? Mike, it's a blur. Talking to you is all I can remember and worrying a lot about the whole thing. It wasn't a great vibe. Andy, I smashed the staircase banister next to my desk. I couldn't believe how mad I got. I kicked it, I think. Mike, you guys both cussed Damien over the phone, remember?
I said cussed?
Andy, yeah, me and Sarush rang him up. I slammed down the phone on him. I'm pretty sure I said the words, fuck Chris Lombardi and fuck those guys about 6,000 times that night.
Yeah.
Mike, it was a bad vibe. Damien was really bummed.
I remember like one of the pivotal moments, maybe it was after we were like in Austin, probably, maybe it was the same year. But like Sarush took me or Damien. Okay, so we were having lunch at one of those barbecue places.
Yeah.
And I don't remember even who it was, if it was me or not. But like somebody was taken down to like the river bank. Do you remember this? And like Sarush.
Sounds like it's going to be a hit.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so there was a lot of stern talking tos. But as far as professionalism, like, yeah, on one hand, okay, so we did record a lot at
Hala Music.
But then we did overdubs at Lauren's place for like 9 months.
Right. I remember that now.
So those 9 months, I was doing emails with Paul, and I was 27 or whatever, and I was like emailing a lawyer about a contract, and then doing like overdubs and like having guests come in and stuff. So on one hand, thinking that like we're like the most professional musicians that have ever existed, but then actually talking to people at labels who are like seem like grown-ups and have real jobs and stuff, and still like we still feel like amateurs, you know. And so
I can confirm that.
that record in particular, there you go, sounds like the job that the engineer did made it sound like a really bright, clean, polished thing. But it's like, it's pretty chaotic musically.
Yeah.
And all the ideas we were having were stuff that we were just like, what if we did this stupid thing? Like all the other instruments, and the songwriting was, we weren't we weren't really going for it, if that's what you're saying.
I think, well, it's weird because at that point in everybody's creative lives, going for it meant asking the question, what if?
Yeah.
And instead of just, activating something that answers that question for you, it's like, what if, indiscriminate what if questions. That's sort of how the pushing happened. But those records existed in earnest in demo form in ways that there's a 4-track demo of, I think, Albino and Chemistry and Twice Born or something that we did in our practice room. It's a room this big that sounded like the Wipers or something. Like that's the other side of that record, is that it was kind of like the stretch of our imagination almost existed in the past tense. And getting into these other spaces and then having the occasion of being signed to a big label means that even if your imagination is still small, it changes context instantly. What if all of a sudden becomes, we're pushing boundaries instead of just like, this is a laugh. So signing to a label, I think for me, colored my opinion of those decisions. Sure. It made it into something that all of a sudden had an intention rather than no consequence.
Well, we already were signed to a label though.
Jade Tree?
Yeah, we had to be bought out of Jade Tree.
No, I know, but signing to Jade Tree, as you recall, it's like I got really drunk after a show in Streetsville and yelled at you in the car. Well, that yelled towards you. We're ruining everything. We built so much. Why?
Who said that?
That was me. Oh. I think it was like a career suicide show and got really drunk. And
I don't think I was there.
You were there because you and Lisa drove me home, and I had like a drunken mumble about it. But Jade Tree was just like, okay, this band took a thing that was already done, and they pushed it into I'm the most naive one in the group. So for me, it meant like, whatever. I'm still going to be drumming in my punk band. Yeah. And then, so these things kind of like, Matador was like a bucket of cold water over my head in terms of trying to like understand what it meant to be in this group. It totally changed the context for me.
I feel like a lot of the punk community were pissed off at you though.
Take a number.
It felt like then, like, so the record previous, like Hidden World came out in 2006, and that was a smaller scale thing. So at that time, it kind of felt like we were a hardcore group that was like making experimental hardcore. Yeah. And within 2 years, and half of that time, we were just writing music the same way. Yeah, it did feel like we had overnight become like an indie band who was like writing like aggressive music. It had like really flipped over, and maybe just because like Chemistry's to me it's like raw and faster and weirder to the first record, but it was on Matador, and which only really meant that like different people were paying attention to it. I think it's still a weirder album, and still very hard, but perceptions outside the band changed a lot.
Yeah,
for sure.
I mean, it definitely changed things in terms of like, you guys had like a big press team working on it and radio team, and I guess it just became like a bigger thing, and I guess a lot of people,
it was like marginally bigger. But again, like I also felt at the time that we were like, in terms of getting bigger, it was in the context of like we were getting bigger with people like Jay and like No Age and stuff, and Mika Miko, and sort of like DIY bands were just getting bigger as like this wave of still like weird, difficult music, rather than like any of those artists trying to be more polished or anything. Yeah, like the next record obviously is poppier, but
sure.
I didn't really know anything about Matter's discography or anything, because I just still back then I was just listening to like soul or techno or like Dysphere or like just really extreme music. We just kind of got swept up in a thing that had nothing to do with the 5.5 of us.
Yeah, I remember we went up to Bradford for that show.
Oh yeah, at the 1 in 12.
At the 1 in 12 club. I don't know. Is it still there?
Yeah,
The 1 and
they
12?
still do all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
Shows.
And they were very, very. the regulars there were very, very pissed off.
Well, that was the famous NME out of punk Trojan horse.
Yeah.
But that was
Which
in
made it into
jest
the
because
NME.
all those people were like our friends, and
Yeah.
I remember, they made like a cardboard Trojan horse, like like football hooligan style. But it was like,
For context, like we'd gone up there because Enemy put Damien on the cover.
Did we not take the photo in Bradford at
it
the
was
1 in
just at a
12?
Tesco or something. I thought.
The
No,
cover
the cover-
photo was
was-
in a butcher's shop
Yeah.
in Bradford. I think we went and bought like
The
it was
insert
really
where we
gross.
were.
Like it was like a cow's heart or a
Yeah.
sheep's heart or something. It was disgusting. But then the insert photo where Damien is completely naked,
Yeah.
kind of doing a Silence of the Lambs
But was that in the 1 in 12?
tuck. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was out the back of the 1 in
See,
12.
they do other things.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can take
But then
a
I
picture.
think like the regulars of the 1 in 12, which is like a amazing legendary club where it's like proper punks go there,
Yeah.
and they were really, really pissed off that the Enemy was. In
But
the
those
building.
people probably didn't even it didn't feel like we were big enough to like have a real backlash at that point, because like
I remember being a bit scared,
No.
just a little bit.
yeah, I don't know. Are you a bit scared right now though, doing this? Like we were still just playing DIY like basements and stuff, and it's
Yeah.
like there wasn't ever going to be a racket of people that were like pissed that we signed to. I always felt like most people don't care you don't look at the label usually unless you're into the label, right? Like just a band getting a few more fans and like a bit more press and stuff, and playing a lot more shows.
And there were a lot of shows.
What did we top out at in a year? Like 150 or something?
Yeah, those years probably like 120 or 150. It still doesn't feel like that much, but
Does Sandy still keep a note of every single show?
we have a list.
Yeah.
But that, it just kind of felt like, okay, now because I remember like the five of us we all like had a meeting at Sandy's house in 2007, and we were all like, hey, we all are quitting. We're going to quit our jobs and
Yeah.
do this. And Sandy was the only one that even had a real job.
Yeah, she worked in like TV or something, right?
She did like scheduling for TV.
Yeah, that was it.
Like, and yeah, we all got to, and the rest of us worked in like video stores and grocery stores and stuff. And, but we were like, okay, we're going to go for it. And so it was also just a consequence of that. Like we had to make a living, and like, it just worked out that we put this record out and we got signed because we quit before, like a year before, I think the record came out, and we just rolled on a tour for like 6 years after that.
My recollection is just that you were always here.
We
Yeah.
were here a lot,
We were
like
here
every
so much.
3 weeks.
Because there was the apartment that was above the Matador office.
Yeah.
And you guys were there.
I slept in the hallway.
Yeah, or sleeping in the hallway of
Yeah.
the office. But I just felt like you were permanently
Yeah.
there, and now you are permanently here.
I'm permanently here. Not in the apartment on
No.
Elma Road.
But UK resident.
Yes, I made it. The UK won the battle for my physical presence.
Can you remember when the record came out? Can you remember like release day?
Yeah. We were at
I don't.
we had played a show in the west of England because we stayed at Ben's
Oh, in Bristol at Ben's aunt's place.
aunt's place in Bristol. So I remember like
Ben was your driver or Ben?
No, Ben
yeah.
Cook. The
So
guitar
I was
player.
like staying in a kid's room. Like I remember like sleeping on the floor, and there was like a bassinet in the room, and like cute pillows and stuff. And then waking up the morning, and then that was release day, so it was reviews and stuff, and I was reading them on, I guess, my computer. I didn't have a cell phone then. And then we would have played like a show like at some club in the west of England. So we were already on probably like a 2-month tour or something.
Yeah.
That was October.
Yeah, it was. I think it was October 8th.
So then we
October 8th?
probably did. We were probably here for like a month, and then we probably did America. And then. When
But then
was
you
the 12-hour
flew-
thing?
Then you flew to New York and you played the 12-hour show.
So
Yeah.
the 12-hour thing was like end of October.
I think it was
You said
mid
15th.
October. I think it was the
Yeah,
15th
okay.
of
Yeah.
October.
So
So,
we
it was
must-
technically release week.
Yeah.
So probably would have been Monday release date at that time. So
I remember we did the 12-hour show. We played the Market Hotel, I think, and then we played Bowery Ballroom, and there was like 14 people there because everyone was like, "Oh, the band that played for free for 12 hours, we're gonna go pay." It was insane.
The Bowery was right after the 12-hour show.
It was the next day.
oh my
And
god, you must have been exhausted.
I was
Yeah.
dead on my feet.
So for listeners that aren't aware, explain the 12-hour show. Can you remember who came up with the idea?
Me,
Right.
yeah.
So
I remember
Fucked Up
being
plays for 12 hours.
Well, it expanded, right? It was like, if this is our job now, why don't we do a show that's 9 to 5? And then,
Something like this.
and then nobody would come show up at 9 in the morning to see Fucked Up Play. So it
Right.
became start in the afternoon for 8 hours,
Yeah.
and then we might as well do it to 12 hours.
So where was it? It was on Bowery.
It was at the Rogan Gallery.
Okay, so they flew us to your guys' offices to have you guys called them fat meetings, which maybe you still do. And I remember you were probably there and like all these people, and I was just, they were like, "Do you have any ideas?" And I guess we came to it like that. And then I remember like Robbie and stuff spent a couple months looking for a good venue. And I think for a while it was going to be at like the Turkish Baths in like the East Village. That was like the prime candidate until they found Rogan. So it was like a block away from where CBGB's is, just sort of like
Across the street.
Yeah, you can see it across the street,
Yeah.
right?
just a sort of medium-sized like clothing store that everything they could move all their clothes. So it's just like a black box room, really cool building. Which we were gonna do we were trying to do a 24-hour show for the record from last year. So I spent last year like digging up like rental stuff for that building, being like, what could we just do it again there? But I couldn't find anything.
But it costs a little
It's
bit
the
more
OVO
now.
store now, anyway.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
it's Drake's
Drake's
place.
store.
Yeah, he's not going to rent that.
I mean, you know,
Probably doesn't own it.
friendly Torontonians, you know.
So the idea is that you would one of you would always be playing at some point for the 12 hours.
Well, I think we sold it as like, yeah, we're just going to play for 12 hours straight. And then it
Yeah.
was like between us, like we'll just be on premises for a whole day, which doesn't actually sound that tricky because, you know, well, I'll be here for 12 hours.
Yeah.
But we probably played for like 8 hours of it and had guests. And so there was like something happening for 12 hours.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna just give myself a pat on the back and say I'm pretty sure I did the most time on that stage.
I think you did.
And my joints were the size of basketballs by the end of it. And
I think you were also wearing a string bass.
I
didn't
did
you?
at some point I switched into a
Mad
string
Men
bass.
play?
Yeah.
Mad Men. No, I sang a Deep Wound cover with Jay Mascis on drums,
Yeah.
and I don't remember who played guitar. But that was a crazy day.
Yeah.
I mean, it started easily enough with, you know, when you start something really long, you think I can do this, and we played Crooked Head, the intro for Crooked Head, for maybe 5 minutes, which felt like an hour.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, surely that's an hour done, and it was not even anything close. We dragged it out, and more people came, and you know, the day went crazy, but it culminated in toward the end of the night when I wasn't playing. I stepped outside with Ben, and Michael Stipe was having a conversation with somebody on the street, and we went up to him and we said, you know, we heard you might be coming, and he said, yeah, it was cool, good show, nice idea, like, you know, thanks for having me. I said, we heard you're a fan of the Feelies. And he said, I'm a big fan of the Feelies. And Ben and I sort of had this idea that Michael Stipe might show up, and we learned some Feelies song. And we were like, oh, you know, we learned this Feelies tune. Maybe you could come and play it with us. And he said, nope, no thanks. Put his scarf over his shoulders and bolted in the opposite direction. So that was like, it's the one chance
Hard no.
Yeah, it was a hard no. That was, you can only push your brushes with fame so far. So yeah.
But you had Moby.
We had Moby, which is the other interesting thing, because this is for a band that fabricates and does all these apocryphal things, or had done over the years. Moby maybe perpetuated the biggest lie about Fucked Up, which is that he saw us open for Youth of Today in Connecticut, and that's how he found out about the band.
I don't know who got him,
I was going to ask that.
but maybe Dean knew him or something. But it turned out he didn't know what band he was performing with.
Oh, really?
He thought we were another band,
Who did you think that?
Youth of Today. Because he played, I think he played a Ramones song with us. And
Yeah.
then we were talking to him after, or no, he did an interview for Rhapsody that we saw like a couple weeks later. And he's like, yeah, I remember seeing them at Anthrax Club in Connecticut in 1987. So it's good to see them again.
But did he not realise when he stood on the stage and
No,
saw like
Likely not.
No.
even Ben with like a real baby face?
He must have thought Ben was Porcel.
Wow,
Oh, he probably
fantastic.
thought Ben was Sammy. He's a young looking guy.
Yeah.
I
That's
didn't
what
know
being
that
vegan
part.
does. Yeah. Or maybe he just made that part up. But
Either way. And then who were the other guests? Jay Mascis?
Jay Mascis, the Les Savy Fav singer, the Vivian Girls.
Seal was on the flyer. Remember they put Seal on the flyer?
Really?
Yeah.
How the fuck were they going to get Seal?
I don't think they were.
That would have been amazing.
Yeah.
Seal's like, you know any Cro-Mag songs?
Yeah,
Although
yeah,
we could have just said he was there. What would anybody know?
I mean, there's a lot of people in there,
The Pope was there. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
famously.
Ezra, Vampire Weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah, yep.
That was fun.
He
We did a
sang
Blitz
Blitz,
cover.
yeah.
Yeah.
And he called the audience nerds.
Yeah, what's up, nerds?
Yep.
That was good.
Which fair?
Which they probably were.
Accurate.
But that's fine. Who else? John Joseph.
Yep. The internet's most famous pizza chef, Chris Hansel.
Who's that?
Warthog Chris.
Oh yeah.
I mean, he wasn't one of the planned celebrities, but, you know, he was there.
I haven't tried his pizza yet.
Me either.
Looks good though.
Warthog Pizza.
Warthog Pizza. Pig
Yeah.
pies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember you guys got us like a camper van, and there was a really good pizza. Probably not his, but there was good pizza in the camper van, so we could like decamp to this van for breaks, which is cool.
How did it end? What was
it-
the finale?
It was
who
kind of a
knows?
damp squib because
Was
everybody
that-
had been playing and
And it
drinking
was like 2
for
o'clock in
12
the
hours.
morning.
and it
Oh,
was
there's
2 in
free
the
beer,
morning.
yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think free vitamin water because it was like 2008 was
Yeah,
the
of
era
course,
of
that was the
vitamin water.
thing.
Possibly Sparks.
Right.
Sparks played yet?
Yeah. Sparks the Beverage, the band.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that at the end of that 12 hours, it was like, who fucking cares?
Yeah. I
You know?
bet.
And I think Matador kindly got us a hotel room somewhere to just sort of crash, and they were suites. They were like really weird family suites with pull-out couches and separate room and floral print stuff everywhere.
That's how you know you made it. If you have to work a full day, your label will buy you a hotel because you had to do something for 12 hours instead of just one.
But then still had to play a show the next day. Your hands must have been destroyed.
They were, I was like, my hands were like not very good at doing anything, but I remember having a great set.
Yeah.
Like for some reason I had this like totally unnecessary resolve to play the greatest show that I possibly could and fight through the pain. And like I said, there was 20 people there. I'm upping it from 14 to 20 to seem more impressive.
yeah.
And I think somebody gave me a compliment that I think it was you actually, Gabe. You said this show was really all about you, and I think you maybe sensed
Yeah, you said that to me too.
my distress, and tried to make me feel better. Yeah, you said it's everybody. You little son of a no. But yeah, no, I mean the show was wretched to play in this great place, so exhausted to nobody. But I don't know. Every show's a good show, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
Nothing bad happens.
I wasn't even there.
I got hit with a light bulb in the face once at a show.
That was pretty bad.
I wasn't there, but I remember going to sleep and then waking up, and then I guess maybe
We
it
were
was
still
still
playing.
going on
Yeah.
when I woke up UK time.
Terrible.
Yeah, there is footage of it online.
You waking up and looking
No,
at your computer
no.
and being like,
They're still going.
yeah.
15 years ago, though.
Blink of an eye.
Yeah. Have you listened back to the record?
I only
recently?
did two because we played
it's a
we
lot.
played the set last month, and I think I only listened to the tricky songs because we still played some of them.
Yeah.
So I listened to about half of it.
It's hard
Seems
to
good.
It's hard to hear the songs that we've been playing in the set because we've just adapted them for the
Yeah, they
for the
don't-
show.
Sound the same.
They're faster. They lack bongos. Mm-hmm. All the sections are truncated and stuff like that. But I listened back before I had to relearn it, and I remember thinking like, why did we do that? Like this sounds so strange, and it's so slow, and like I found all these faults with it. But listening to it to perform kind of brought me back to this place of playing them and like being the band that played all those songs live and wrote them. Because we're not really, 15 years is a long time. Like you remake yourself so many times in that, especially as musicians who are consistently putting out music. The whole point is to simultaneously erase and build on what you've already done. But I came back to it before that show in October, the anniversary gig where we played everything. And I thought, that's a fucking great record. Like, it sounds good. The playing is confident. That's the thing, is that it's hard to exude confidence when you're rank amateurs that have been put into this position of getting everybody's attention. And that record has a ton of confidence and undeserved confidence. But nonetheless, we pulled it off. And like the rest of in comparison, some stuff starts to feel egotistical when you don't have that naive confidence of like, yeah, I can do this, you know? And you know, Mike's already talked about lots of this stuff that was actually happening behind the scenes to make this record exist, which I think the rest of us, or me anyway, can often forget. But you hear it as a product outside of all of those things, even talking about them now. It stands as this like moment in which we felt able to make that record. Now we feel entitled to make that record, and we do it every 6 months. There's 10 records in the bag waiting. But yeah, that was a pivotal, you know, conscientious moment of creativity, I think.
Absolutely. I think it just felt like an important moment, like an important record for that period of time as well. Like you said before, there was like a lot of people that were, you know, they weren't indie bands, they weren't punk bands, there was like, you're no age, you've got Tiny Viking, Jay was obviously super prolific at that point, and you guys, and then I feel like a lot of those bands, it was like the shorter the song, the better, and then suddenly this record came along and it was like the longer the song, the bigger. How many guitar tracks are there on that record?
I think we used to say like 150,
Yeah,
but probably like, I don't know, probably 50 or something. Yeah, like I remember people back then were talking about Jay as being like the next Kurt Cobain. And so it always felt like, yeah, we were still getting to be like the weird band in like the class of like weird bands getting promoted to whatever. But the music is one thing, but like to me, like that record is still just like, it was our last kind of like dealing with like the mysteries of the universe kind of shit that we were on back then, you know. Like the art is incredibly weird and all this stuff. At least all my songs are about like fish and plants and all, you know. And it was like getting to have that stuff into a record that people were like taking seriously, I thought was very, very weird to me, and cool. But
there was so much mystery around it all.
Yeah,
I think that's why, like, I definitely had, like you're saying, I can't remember the first time we met, but
well, it's mystery. It's clouded in mystery.
Yeah, but I do remember having like trepidation about it, because it was like, who is called what? Do we use a pseudonym? Who is David? Is David the manager?
Yeah.
Didn't know.
I was still answering emails as David.
As David, yeah. Which was unnerving and confusing. I think it was definitely there was a lot of mystery.
Yeah.
Which is
Mysterious Guy Hardcore.
Yeah.
This is amazing though, because behind the Wizard of Oz curtain is like the most dysfunctional quintet, sextet of people that are like so unambiguous in everything else, like deeply flawed, normal, exceptionally normal personalities. You know, and actually, no, I'm going to reverse that. We are the most abnormal personalities that can possibly, but you know, like, you know, you don't walk in and see somebody shrouded in a cloak and that only speaks in haiku and riddles. You just get everybody.
You live on a boat.
Am I the mysterious one?
Yeah.
Okay.
You might tuck your shirt in, but you know.
Let's be honest. I'm the most interesting one. I float through the universe physically and.
But I think that kind of stuff got us pretty far away, because I think like people always talk about like, okay, you must deal with a lot of stuff because of your name. But I think being obtuse like that and having a swear word as your name like helped us glide over some stuff, and you know, have people like you or like people at the label like dealing with the band on that level probably made it a lot more exciting than just talking to like the 5 people in the band, you know. Which is, you know, that's why people in arts do that stuff in jet at all. Like, and we were sort of participating in a very long punk tradition. Just I personally was trying to imbue it with like actual magic stuff, because I was like, you know, really into the Grant Morrison magic stuff back then.
Yeah. But you know what?
Balagda.
idea that there was this like shim between the rest of the world and Fucked Up, it seems very unconventional, but most people do that with a manager. So like very conventional things. There is a physical person that's like, you can't talk to them. I'll do the talking and aggregate both these things. And having us be both of those people, or having Mike be both of those people, is interesting, because it's like, at some point, especially at that time, we had to answer these questions. Like, who is who here? Like, are we had to form ourselves as a working unit at that time, who knew what a production team was going to do, who knew what a management team was going to do, who knew what professional musicians did. And it was like everybody put all of those tasks in a hat and pulled a different one out every day. Mm-hmm. And so that, you know, the mystique it leaked through the facade of the image of Fucked Up as being mysterious into the chaos of what it was like to be in the group, you know? Because these things are still being codified to this day. And that moment of chemistry where bands flip over, I think lots of bands just have help and have management teams or like labels offices full of people that like solve their problems for them. And we're the connection with punk meant that we tried to constantly do it ourselves. And this creates a very like hyper specific version of what a business model is, or what a working group of people is, and B, also like this amazing chaos that can never be replicated. And you know, we lived by the sword and died by the sword in that sense. Like you don't take your youth into your adult life so often in the way that Fucked Up has, and it's sort of like both refusing to change, or you could call that an evolution if you wanted. So I don't know.
It's funny though, because the band at the time, well, I'm sure it probably is the similar way now, but everyone actually had their defined roles. None of it made any sense to me. It was like, okay, you know, Sandy's doing like the accounting, the money, whatever. You know, maybe you were doing like tour logistics or whatever. Damien would do the interviews because everybody wanted to speak to Damien. You were on your own thing. Whatever you were doing.
Thank you very much.
But everyone did have their own role, but none of it, the separate parts made no sense. But then it all kind of worked together. And especially when you would play, it's like, you know, there'd be days where, you know, you guys would be staying in the flat, and I knew that no one was talking to each other. Because you were pissed off with each other, or just like needed space, or it just been, you know, it was like 20 days in a row or whatever. And then you'd get on stage, and then that would all just fall away, and it would all work really, really well together.
The shows were very exciting back then. And I think we were dealing with like transitioning out of an audience and transitioning into like a different professional environment, but also like doing it as 5 people that didn't really have any professional ambitions other than to just be able to make records and tour and stuff. And not knowing how to do, like, we all came out of DIY spaces, and like, you know, we met each other at like a DIY record store, and so we were just used to like being in groups of people where you just had a job to do, and 10 or 20 people just figure it out in this weird way. And that's what we did with the band. And it was like, just behind the scenes, just sort of like a dysfunctional but like egalitarian project where like everything was always split equally, and like people just gravitate, like, you know, the more stuff you do, the more tasks come at you. And we had a good team of people with like at the label and booking and stuff, but we didn't have management to help us deal with that stuff and also try to propel us forward in any way. We were just like taking it day by day and just trying to like be good instead of being big, really. And so probably from the outside, it looked really weird, but from the inside, those arrangements always seem very organic and like self-sustaining, which, you know, 15 years later, that's probably why we're still a band.
So you wouldn't change anything? I mean, would you change anything about the record, or?
No, I wouldn't. No, not the record. I wouldn't have played that Bowery Ballroom show. But the record to me, the musically seems like when you like, you know, those like firecrackers that you nail to a tree, and those videos of like when it jumps off the tree and it's still spinning
Catherine
around the park,
wheel.
and that's what the record sounds like to me. Just like a really bright, uncontrollable thing that you just have to wait till it burns out to touch it.
And you wouldn't change anything about the time?
Those was a good time. You know, like I don't look back on that with any kind of criticality, in a sense, because it was just completely new.
Yeah.
And I don't know how that newness could have been changed to be any more new. You know.
Sure.
So if at the time, you know, in some kind of bizarre retrospective, you know, if there was something to pull that chaotic nature of the band together a bit more and help us use that to really propel us, that might have been nice, might have been different, but you know, you can't regret, you can't just go around regretting things, you know. I definitely wouldn't change the record. There's a few drum fills that I regret, but like that's drumming.
I think we're all still making music all these years later, and I think that's all any of us really wanted to do or were able to do. So I think like back then, like any new thing we would have taken on or gone after would have meant sacrificing something else, and probably we would have imploded if we took on any more than was allowable. So yeah, I think like it all kind of worked out. Yeah, it's been like 25 years or something insane. So
yeah, it's nuts. And like you say, I mean, you know, they maxed out on what 150. I mean, pretty much a show every other day, near enough.
That's too many shows.
It's too many shows.
Yeah, doing that now we would be dead.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we'd need an army of helpers, and we need Dr. Feelgood or whatever, or like one of those quacks from like Hollywood in the 60s that just gives you amphetamines or something. Yeah, you know, it's a good concept to end on, I don't know, maybe you've got more questions.
I do not.
I regret that Matador didn't give us like $10 million.
Yeah.
But
you could have at least given us the flat, or you know, I could have used it to live in. Save myself being on the rust pencil. Yeah.
Well, thank you guys.
Thanks, Natalie.
I mean, very important record for me. Still is. I listened to it again this week.
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Check it out. 15-year anniversary edition coming out February, I believe, which is probably when this will come out.
Yeah, February. It's in my calendar.
Nice,
but none of you have access to that.
No.
So good luck.
See you in another 15 years.